And it's finally time, a big time main event on this card. We have Rafael Fiziev taking on one Mateusz Gamrot. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen, Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, respective socials, Matt Allen FNP. And people can get up about this fight. This is a poster style type of fight between one of the best strikers that you're going to find at lightweight against a guy who seems to get dropped in every fight. But by golly, by gosh, is he ever a good grappler? It's the former two-division KSW champ. We're talking about Mateusz Gamrot. Matt, this is one of those fights that if you're watching it at a bar, you're going to need a little bit of like a Sean McVay holder for one of your friends. Because one of your friends is going to get loud, he's going to get rowdy, and somebody's going to have to grasp the small of his back and hold him back so he doesn't just upset beers and get way too excited for no good reason between Gamrot and Fiziev. Now, Matt, when I look at this fight, Fiziev, his last time out, a loss to eventual BMF champ Justin Gaethje. Majority decision loss. The judges were all over the place in scoring the particular rounds for that one, but was it a 10-8 in the third for Gaethje? Well, one of the judges scored it that way. And for Mateusz Gamrot, his last time out, one of those classic Gamrot-style fights. A split decision win over Jalen Turner. He gets popped by a little right hand in tight in the first round, so much so that the commentary doesn't even notice it. He gets popped by that, he drops down, and he turns that knockdown to a whoop-see-doo, and then he gets a takedown off
And
it.
you bring it up, Gamrot has been hurt in a lot of his fights, but I was thinking about this earlier. There was always a fighter that you wanted a potential opponent of Khabib to fight on his way up the rankings. Who was that opponent you wanted anybody to fight before they fought Khabib?
Tony Ferguson?
Kevin Lee.
Oh, yeah, Kevin.
Kevin Lee is going to somewhat test you on the feet, right? He's a powerful striker, but somewhat incomplete with his striking, but he's a phenomenal wrestler, really good grappler too. So any potential title challenger out there who could, maybe realistically fight Khabib one day, I always wanted them to fight Kevin Lee because it was a great precursor before you got to that title shot. Mateusz Gamrot is my new Kevin Lee for this division, and some people might think that's a shot at Gamrot, but I do not mean it that way in the slightest, because Gamrot does have a great wealth of MMA, not only experience, but knowledge as well. You bring it up. He is a good grappler, a great wrestler, but it's not like he's a zero on the feet, right? He's a powerful striker. He can get ugly when the fight needs to get ugly, and he's a good technical boxer from the outside when he really wants to be. But the thing about Gamrot is, the wrestling and the grappling, along with the cardio, has reached a level, or just at a level now, to where any fighter who is making their way through the rankings, well, before they fight Islam, I want them to fight Mateusz, just because I do think it is a great kind of, here's the Charmander to Islam's Charizard, if you will. I just think it's a great first step if you do ever envision a fighter potentially getting to a title shot.
And even in making the mistake, you look at the Gamrot fight against Jalen Turner. A southpaw, it was a short left hand that drops Gamrot, not a right. He drops down, he ends up into a takedown. And good wherewithal from Turner, even when he got taken out, he was trying to push himself back up,
trying to be really
get
active.
back up. And Gamrot, you know him, 2014, 2019 ADCC European champ, continues to go with what got him to the dance. A freestyle wrestling background is what Gamrot has. He still trains with all of the big names out of Poland. You see that at the beginning of his camp. But Boris Mankowski also still making the trek with him to American Top Team to get in some of that good quality training against some of the best in the world. And it's always fun to go, that's where American Top Team is, and that's where Kill Cliff FC is, and they're very, very close together. Fiziev, you know the story. I mean, the kickboxing lineage, the alleged, and I say alleged because I'm sure there's other numbers, but 39-8 in kickboxing. But the striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai trains out of Kill Cliff FC with the one and only Nick Lentz. He's going to be working those guillotines for old Fiziev in the wrestling room. But when I look at this fight, Matt, the reason why I made the mistake with Jalen Turner, right hand, left hand, I went back and watched so much tape on Mateusz Gamrot to get ready for this one. I said, listen, let's put the specs on and let's get excited. I got specs here somewhere. There we go. You know me as the prop king of MMA. Let's put them on. I put the specs on.
The self-appointed prop king of MMA. On the throne he sits.
Wow, we'll see. But when I looked at it for Gamrot, the reason I made the mistake, I went back and watched his fight against Mansour Barnaoui. And I know Mansour didn't win his last fight with Bellator. He was thought... No, but he was thought to at least go out there and maybe even win the title over with Bellator in the comeback into MMA because he had a long time off.
Do you know what Rafael Fiziev would do to Brent Primus?
Gamrot in that fight, Gamrot's striking was non-existent. He had great wrestling, great scrambles, but Mansour walks him down with his hands about here, throws the right hand. Gamrot's just there to be hit. He gets dropped. He bounces back up, and same exact thing. He gets himself into a scramble position and ends up on top. So going back and watching the Gamrot fights, his knockdown ratio just in the UFC is 1-4 to 4 against. You remember the Hot Sauce Holtzman performance in the night bonus. You remember the Jeremy Stevens finish that was done pretty quickly. You remember the fight against Arman Tsarukyan where he gets dropped by a spinning back fist, or Guram Kutateladze where he gets hit by an overhand, or against Beneil Dariush, who once it gets in tight, he eats a complete overhand left.
One of the cleanest non-knockout strikes you will ever see.
And then Gamrot's back into it. So in this matchup, Matt, I mean, for Fiziev, we haven't touched on it. His last win.
Well, he's only got power from one side, of course. He is known as the Jaylen Brown. Oh, wait, sorry. My sources are telling me Fiziev can throw from both stances.
Fiziev, his last win, a main event. It's a free fight out there on the UFC's YouTube channel. One of the greatest grapplers in lightweight and somewhat welterweight history, Rafael Dos Anjos. And in that one, he was able to defend, 14 of 16 Dos Anjos attempts. Walks him down at the end of that fight, gets the win. Fiziev, Matt, I mean, apart from the 2 losses, one in a UFC debut that most people forget about. An all-time spinning, ish, I guess they say, type of fighter. A coconut head before it's been popular once again.
Adrian Brody's like, excuse me, you take that back.
You look at Joe Burrow now, and then you look at Magomed Mustafayev.
What, a bad quarterback of an 0-2 team?
Mustafayev ran so Joey B could walk, but Mustafayev finishes Fiziev. He wins a ton of fights in a row, and the craziest stat for Fiziev that jumps off a page, his last 6 fights, all bonus worthy. All bonus worthy.
This is a weird way to break down this fight, but maybe I'm looking too much into the knockdown ratio that Gamrot has, because you bring it up. He has been dropped a lot more times than he's going out and getting the knockdowns, even though I don't really care about the knockdowns for as much as the knockdowns against. Fiziev stays tough. Like, if the going gets tough, I know Fiziev is still going to be in the fight, right? If he gets submitted, that's a different story. The fight's over. There's nothing you can do. But unless he gets knocked out or submitted or brought to the level of exhaustion where he just can't respond with powerful shots, I think he's always going to have an opportunity to win this fight. Like, Gamrot has to mind his P's and Q's so much more than Fiziev does. Because if Rafael gets taken down a few times, yes, he's going to be able to threat not only at the ground and pound, but the submissions, but he's going to get another round and another opportunity to get back up to his feet and have that striking advantage that I do think he's going to have in this fight, whereas Gamrot has to avoid those big shots over and over and over again. And if Arman Tsarukyan can drop you with a spinning back fist, Rafael Fiziev is one of the better in-combination strikers we have seen. And I do think Gamrot's going to be able to avoid the initial big shot. But if Fiziev does what he did against, like, Moicano is always a great example, because he goes head, body, head, and the fight is over. There is no second guesses from Moicano. If he fights like that versus him, to where he's moving forward, he's confident, and he's throwing in combination, I don't think Gamrot's durability can hold up against those type of power shots.
Well, and you look at it for Gamrot, he's had great fights in the UFC, don't get me wrong. Sure. Again, more bonuses. Holtzman, Stevens, fight of the night against Guram and Arman Tsarukyan. But for Gamrot, you go back and watch those KSW fights. The 3 fights against Norman Parke. The third one, he is boxing Norman Parke. I'd say he's boxing his ears in. He's boxing his right eye up to the point that it ends up in the 3rd round. And if I could do a little bit of a Northern Ireland type of accent to it.
Please do.
You see the doctor come in, you see Norman Parke go, and then it's the end of the fight. The doctor ends it. His eye is swollen so bad. And Gamrot, again, from Barnaoui, from the early fights with KSW, to beating Parke in the 3rd fight, to then a month later fighting Marian Ziolkowski, who was the KSW lightweight champ after Gamrot left. Unfortunately, injuries have kind of derailed Ziolkowski now, and Palnas has been able to carry that torch once more. But when I do look at this fight, Matt, again, Gamrot, even when he gets hurt, he's not out of any of these fights. And for Fiziev, the takedown defense has been really, really good in the UFC. He's been able to defend some more. So when we do look at this one, Matt, Fiziev, he is slightly favored in the matchup. And these main events, we don't throw it over to Topology. We throw it out to you guys. And I threw it out late this afternoon. I think there's been quite a few votes. I'll load it up a little bit more as we go along. 69% going with Rafael Fiziev to get the win. In the comments section, Matt, Eric Axel's out there every time. This might be one of the rare fights where a 3-rounder would be more interesting. Gamrot has a better gas tank and will likely bank enough the 5 rounds to win a grinding decision. Moro, one of my fave upcoming fights by far. You know what? I'm down on some of the prelims.
But this is a great main event.
I'm excited about this one. I actually looked forward to doing the tape study to this versus Tamiris Vidal, Montserrat Rendon. That's a real fight. Crazy Pato saying, I have to lean towards Gamrot. His chain wrestling will make Fiziev hesitate with his striking, while his high-paced grappling style will drain Fiziev's gas tank faster, and everybody's going to point to the Bobby Green fight of the gas tank evading Fiziev in the 3rd round of that one. And we'll go with one more. Drew Jen saying, Fiziev will have no answers for Gamrot's Matt game. So Matt, as is the usual, The commenters who are the loudest have the underdog in the matchup, whereas the masses going with the other fighter, being Fiziev. But I'm eager to get your thoughts on some of those comments and what you think about the fight.
I'm surprised so many people do have Gamrot, just because we have seen him susceptible to the big shot from far lesser strikers than a Rafael Fiziev. And like, if Fiziev fought Norman Park, I'm just going to make that face. I don't really think I need to say anything more.
It was quite a while ago, though.
He beat him, though, pretty soundly, is all I'm trying to say. My point is, for Gamrot, he had a lot of difficult fights before he made it to the UFC. And this is a talking point for even Justin Gaethje before he made it. It was, hey, how much of himself did he spend before he made it to the UFC? And you don't want to say, a lesser promotion, because World Series of Fighting, when Gaethje was there, and KSW, of course, right now, there's good fighters in those organizations.
Ivanov.
There are high-level professional MMA organizations. But for Gamrot, he accepted a lot of damage on that scene in KSW, and he's continued to accept it on the biggest show in the UFC, and he hasn't made those adjustments. Even in the wins, we're still seeing him getting clipped by shots, and that's why I bring it up. This is a fight where Gamrot could win 24 and a half minutes of it, and I would still be a little bit worried that Fiziev could land that big shot as it goes down the stretch, because Fiziev in the RDA fight, like you bring up, I know he's had some cardio issues in his fights, but I always bring up pacing a lot more than cardio, because I believe pacing is a bigger issue for fighters than just pure cardio is. I think a lot of professional athletes can go out there and throw just 100 significant strikes, for instance, in a 3-5 round atmosphere, right? Like, you're a professional athlete, you get paid to do this, you should probably be able to. But fighters do have a problem with burning very hot in that first round, then just being a lesser version of himself in round 2 and round 3. And for Fiziev, I think he firmly falls into that category. We do have enough evidence now to where, hey, he's got big power in round 3, 4, and 5. I don't think he's going to be a fighter that only has a few takedowns to defend before he becomes a lesser version of himself. I'm going to take a big deep breath to give my prediction. I have Rafael Fiziev. I think this is a phenomenal fight, and it's one of those great fights that I always enjoy, because you wonder how many more opportunities both guys are going to get fighting guys in that top 10 before they kind of just get resulted in, hey, you're fighting guys in the up and up more than you're trying to fight your own way up the rankings. So it's an important fight for both fighters. I think we're going to get the best version of both athletes, but I just think Fiziev's a little bit more lethal with his strikes.
Historically, I picked against Fiziev, I think, in the Moicano fight, and historically, I picked Mateusz Gamrot to win fights. I talked up Gamrot on the way into the UFC. With Fiziev, I wasn't sold, and then I wasn't sold against Mustafayev, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth, and that's just a part of being human, I guess. But when I do look at this matchup, Matt, for Fiziev, the possible 10-8, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the 10-8 was
a lot of clean
scored
shots in that third
by
round.
Paul Sutherland. He said that was a 10-8 in the third round. Colette scored round 2, round 3, Gaethje. Werner scored round 1, round 3 for Gaethje. And Sutherland scored round 1 and round 2 for Fiziev. So kind of all over the place with the way that the rounds were scored in that matchup. But for Fiziev, again, you go back, is Dos Anjos over the hill? I don't know. I thought he looked good against Moicano in an abbreviated 160-pound catchweight main event.
Sure, no.
But Fiziev in that one, again, defending 14 to 16 overall takedown attempts, 60% takedown defense in the UFC so far. Gamrot's the guy that's going to test that. Awesome endurance, great conditioning for Gamrot. For Fiziev, there's always going to be questions there, but I do ever so slightly have Rafael Fiziev in the matchup in this one.
Dariush next, right?
Yeah, I think you do that.
I think that'd be a good fight, right?
Yeah, Gamrot losing to Dariush. Fiziev, I think you just get to carry that one forward. Make that fight, but Matt, some big-time fights on this card. Some ones that you can get excited about. The last 3 feature all 6 ranked fighters on the card. You have the debut of Montserrat Randon at the start of it. You got some prospects littered throughout. Ultimate Fighter 29 winner, Ultimate Fighter 30 winner, and everything in between. Only an 11-fight set as of Sunday night when we tape these, so if there's any changes to it, make sure you check it out here. Make sure you subscribe so you know that when we are about to go live, we do question mark kicks. That's typically 2 hours before the prelims. This is a card in Vegas at the Apex. Those are normally at a normal time. It's not in Australia or France or any other, non-Vegas location, if you will. So the start time should be normal for that one. But as a crutch, always 2 hours before the prelims. You can find us at Craig Allen FNP, at Matt Allen FNP. I've done a Luke Bryan impression. I've eaten rib-flavored popcorn on this show.
I've made a lot of dumb jokes.
If you made, an effort, make sure you check out some of that stuff on your way out. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.